We got a question from Facebook.
Kelly wants to know, what do you do when you're purging unwanted items and clutter, but family members are doing the opposite?
Oh, yes. Well, let's talk about this. To me, it seems like a simple solution. You just give them the things you're purging. If they're doing the opposite, what a perfect yin and yang.
Right.
I did this when I first started simplifying. I went up to Ryan's house with about 70 neckties. I didn't tell him about the minimalism thing yet. And he's like, oh, wow, you're getting rid of all these neckties?
Sweet.
He was draped in neckties. They were headscarves, ascots.
Oh, man.
He was using them as tourniquets.
Yes. Oh, man. I'll never forget all those ties. Anyway.
Did you feel betrayed when you found out like the next week how much you're free with less?
No, to be honest, he gave me all those ties and like it wasn't but a month. I mean, whether, you know, I knew about minimalism or not by the time that month had passed, but like I had like basically taken 5 or 10 of them and then donated the rest. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And you actually got some value from some of them.
Yeah,
and
for
I
sure.
think that's the lesson here, that just because you're getting rid of something that is not bringing any value to your life at all anymore, it's in the way, it has turned into clutter for you. Those neckties I was getting rid of were clutter for me, but they weren't clutter for Ryan. At least 5 of them weren't, right? And so I think it's important to realize that, well, conflicting desires, your desire is different from your family's desire. That is not a sign of moral failure, not on your part and not on their part either.
Right.
If the other person wants to amass things, collect things, and they say, no, I'm a maximalist, I want more things in my life, that's not a moral failure on their part. It's merely a preference.
Yeah.
TK, I loved what you said when we were at the Sunday Symposium last month, the October one. We got our final one of the year coming up November 27th, sundaysymposium.com. There's still a few free tickets left. But you were talking to this gal, I think her name was Heather, the first gal who asked a question, and she was like really upset. Like she was getting teary-eyed. You remember this, Ryan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She was super upset because she's like, I was supposed to bring my boyfriend here, but he didn't come. He's trying to decide whether or not he still wants to be in the relationship. And they're at the event, we were talking about being wiggly versus being rigid, and how everyone is a little bit rigid, everyone's a little bit wiggly, but some people are more wiggly. Ryan's more wiggly than me. I'm more rigid than him. It's not an indictment. That's not a bad thing either. Being more rigid is not a moral failure. But if you realize that you're not getting the outcomes you want from too much rigidity, then it behooves you to be wiggly. And the vice versa. If you're so wiggly, you're not getting anything done that you want to get done, it behooves you to have some more structure, some more rigidity in your life. And the thing that she was talking about there is like, I want to be more wiggly. But then she was saying, but there are so many, I asked for an example. Like, what are some of the things that you're rigid with? She's like, well, like, for example, I want the toilet seat to be down. And I'm like, okay. She's like, no, I mean like all the way down because studies show. And I said, let me cut you off there. If you're starting a conversation where you're asking someone if they'd be willing to help you, you don't ever want to start the conversation with studies show.
Studies show why you should help me.
Yes. Ryan, the data says that I'm right. Is not a great way to start the conversation. And I loved TK's perspective on this conversation. He basically came in and said, hey, listen, Heather, your preference is merely your preference. You can go into this and say, hey, it's my preference to have the toilet seat down. That doesn't require a single study. It doesn't require anything that's peer reviewed. By the way, we appeal to authority all the time. The studies say, or, oh, this is peer reviewed. Like that's a good thing.
Right.
I was once at the zoo and I saw an orangutan show his poop in his hand to a bunch of other orangutans. That's peer reviewed. But that's what we're doing quite often. We're appealing to authority, right? Look at my crap, my peer-reviewed crap, and I'm going to hurl this crap at you now in order to get my way. But if you simply show up and say, hey, this is my preference. It's my preference, Kelly, to live with less. It is my preference to own fewer things. It is my preference to not indulge in consumerism. It's my preference to avoid the shopping mall. It's my preference to own fewer things so I have less clutter in my house. No one can say that you're wrong because it's merely your preference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something about giving an argument for your opinion that makes it sound like it's stronger, but actually signals a kind of weakness to other people. Because what it signals is, I am psychologically dependent upon your agreeing with me
Mhm.
in order to feel comfortable having this preference. And so when I just state a preference, this is what I want, it's strong because you can't argue with the preference. You can say, well, I don't share the same preference, but that's it. But when I give you the argument for it, it's an invitation to argue with me because it's a way of saying, this is what I want. I prefer the toilet seat down or up. And in addition to that, here's some research that says it would be superior for you to want what I want. Or this is why you're an idiot or why you're illogical for not also wanting what I want. And that's going to stir up defensiveness and make the other people want to contend with you. Sometimes the strongest way to put your preferences across is to just state the preference and show that you don't feel the need to justify it. You don't feel the need to apologize for it, right?
Yeah.
I do want to say something else too with this question about you're purging and other people aren't. It's really the same as any other approach that you take to making your life better. What do you do if you're trying to eat healthier and all of your family members and friends are still eating pizza 3 times a day?
You force them to stop. You throw it out in front of them.
You guilt and shame them.
You spit on the
There you
pizza.
go.
That's right.
There you go, right? Or what if you are starting to exercise more and all your family and friends are still being couch potatoes? What if you're starting to turn down the social media and the TV and focus more on reading or getting out in nature or bettering yourself, and all of your friends are still addicted to their phones and addicted to TV? What do? You keep exercising. You keep working on your eating. You keep focusing on your projects. You keep going outside. You keep focusing on the thing you can control, which is your own personal development. And you let your life speak and you give other people the space to decide if they want to work on themselves when it is time for them to do that. But don't use other people as your reason to stop doing what's healthy for you. Other people are always going to be moving in directions that are different from yours or opposite of yours. And you're not going to change them, right? You're not going to preach at them and make them go, oh, okay, I want to get on your program and do the thing that you do. You just got to give yourself the freedom and the permission to pursue what makes you come alive, even when everybody else is doing things that for you would make you feel dead inside.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly, I totally agree with what you're saying here, TK. I mean, Kelly, your preferences are your preferences. Your family's preferences are their preferences. And there's no reason why those two can't live side by side with each other. And maybe, instead of having this, it sounds like a bit of a combative context, maybe, work towards having a compassionate context. Like how can you show your family not just support, but show them compassion when it comes to their preferences? Because ultimately, whatever their preferences are, to have a good relationship with others, we do have to be supportive. We do have to show that compassion. We do have to respect their preferences. So yeah, this isn't about getting your family to change. To me, it sounds like, how can you find a different context to help your preferences live side by side with your families? Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.